welcome, fellow vault
Welcome.
dwellers, all of us. Tonight, it looks a little bit different. If you guys usually watch us, it looks a little bit different than usual. We are broadcasting from a heavily fortified bunker. It's getting crazy out there, folks. You know, it's not just empty grocery shelves. We got people fighting over TP for some reason. And we have a media that seems more interested in fear-mongering and undermining Trump than it does the welfare of the country. So, and despite the fact, despite all that, his poll numbers do seem to be rising. So that's good, at least in relation to his handling of the coronavirus. And I think we're going to get a little disagreement on that in our panel tonight, so which is welcome. I'm always welcoming a little discourse. But needless to say, we do have a lot to talk about. We're going to get into these topics here in just a minute. And we do have a call-in number. If you all want to call in, we're going to do a little bit of that tonight. I do not have the number here in front of me. Hopefully we can get that in the chat. So just look for that in the chat.
Panel.
Oh, is it?
It's up on the screen. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, call that number. Call in. We'd love to hear from you guys. But tonight,
the reason
later. I'm sorry?
Sorry. Never mind.
Call it a little later. Okay. But yeah, we want you guys to call in. The reason it looks a little bit different is because the show is being produced tonight by the producer of American Joe's show, Dustin, and we're very lucky to have him here with us tonight. Welcome, Dustin. And not American Joe?
No, Douglas Ducote.
Oh, Douglas Ducote. Sorry about that, man. I apologize.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. People confuse them. Yeah. They're both large and hairy.
Yeah, they are very burly men. So yeah, and also we have two of the best up and coming YouTubers out there right now, Robert Noir and SJG Perspectives. They're with us every Saturday here, and if you want to support their channels or any of these channels, we'll have all the links in the description for you guys. But let's go ahead and kick this off. Did you have memes that you wanted to show, SJG, or
you know what? I knew I was gonna. You were just gonna bring that up. I didn't have time. I didn't prepare the memes, so we're just gonna go with a different. I don't think we'll have time.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
So I guess we'll just get started here, because I think what everybody's kind of going through right now is this seemingly monumental event is going on. We're all being told, to stay in our homes, which is, unprecedented. None of us have ever had to do that before. Everything's getting shut down. Las Vegas is shutting down sports, everything. And while all this is going on, we have the media, which is really ramping up the fear at the same time, clearly politicizing it. And so, a lot of people are left wondering, is any of this real? Should I take this seriously? And I think we have probably some opinions on all sides here tonight. Who wants to get us started? SJG? What do you think, man? I mean, I guess my question is, one, should we take this seriously? I mean, should we really, truly take this seriously? And if we do that, what does that mean as far as, our rights and the powers that the government is going to take from that? Because if we're so willing to just, save us, do whatever you got to do, what's the danger of that? And will America, as we know it, can it survive all of this?
So that I don't know. I don't know how my gut, and I don't like to be the fearmonger guy. But everything I've been telling my family, I used to be a conspirator. I kind of still am. But back in the day was like, man, we're going to have martial law. We're going to have the markets are going to crash. We're going to, the debt-based system, monetary system is going to be wiped out. And then 2012 or 11, 12, 13 came. It didn't happen. I just kind of moved away from that and just always held in the back of my head. But we are definitely need to take this scenario seriously with everything that is happening. Absolutely. When the virus first came out, I was one that was like, it's no worse than the flu. This is ridiculous. I thought it was more of just a concerted effort just to unseat Trump. Right. And I thought it would just kind of blow over after a little bit and maybe it'd go for a little while. But, I saw the potential there. But the more I hear about the virus, the more I think, no, I think it's legit. I know some people over here don't necessarily think it's a bioweapon. I definitely think it was a bioweapon. I think it could have been it escaped, and we can get into that later. Maybe it escaped early, maybe it wasn't, or it's designed to be less lethal kind of a thing. But so I definitely think right now we don't know enough, truly know enough, because we see what's happening in Italy and we see what's happening on these other spots. But really, we don't fully understand. None of us really know a lot of people that have gone through it personally yet, so we don't really know the ramifications. I think they very well could be very bad. I do think it'll be worse than the flu bug. I definitely think that has a potential to, and where we're at now with it to where it is, overwhelming our hospital systems. We're just like, I can't even I don't want to let my kid play on the quad in the background, because if she has to go to the hospital, she won't be able to get seen by anybody. And if she does go and get seen, she's going to be in the worst place possible to possibly catch it. So yes, I think the virus is bad. How bad? I don't know. None of us really truly know yet. But what is happening is scary as hell, because it is we're on a slip and slide. It isn't a slippery slope anymore. We are at the top of the wet and wild park, going down a grease slide. And the things that are going to be rolled out and that are being rolled out is insane to me. There's no way I believe we come rocketing back after a couple months from this. You can't crash the whole everything and pull the whole economy to a screeching halt and then think, oh, we're just going to in a couple months be back to normal. No, I mean, it has quite the potential to devolve into utter and total and complete anarchy, is my fear. And that's kind of where I'm at a little bit on this.
Yeah. In Washington, a lot of people are taking pictures of the businesses now. They're boarding them up. So it's like, what are they expecting to be coming down the road here soon? Right. What do you think, Robert?
Right. So I don't disagree with almost anything that SJG said there. For me, it's real simple. I don't know what the virus will do. I have no clue. It could kill 0 more people. It could kill 3 million more people. I don't know. That's what I've said from the get-go. Is it an intentional bioweapon? Was it a bioweapon that was accidentally leaked? I don't know. I know this from history, through my viewing, through what I do on my channel. The government exploits crises to take your rights away from you. There are globalists that are in our government right now that want to see the destruction of the middle class. They want to see the destruction of borders. And they'll use this just like they'll use any crisis. It doesn't matter if they intentionally leaked it or not. Because I don't know the severity of the virus. This is all I want. I'm not saying that the government doesn't have the right to ever shut down or to quarantine people if there's a massive reason to do it. For example, if a virus was released that was infecting 1 million people and it was killing 80% of them, clearly then we could see, okay, this requires some sort of government intervention, right? So I'm not saying, hey, I disagree if you're a terrible person if you think the government should step in. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, the government, at a bare minimum, should at least be forced to answer a series of basic questions before they take these rights. Us as Americans, at a bare minimum, should ask our government these basic questions before we celebrate them taking our rights. And neither of those are happening. Right now we see, let me just give you the most basic question. What is the threshold for when the government could come in and have lockdowns and basically cause a shutdown and intentional collapse of the U.S. economy? What is the threshold? Tell me, you don't have to give me the exact number. If it was 59,000 would die, then we won't do it. But 60,000 we will. But give me a ballpark figure. Right? Like people are rightfully saying in the chat right now, 600,000 people a year in some cases die of the flu. Is that enough to trigger it? Was H1N1 enough to trigger it? Is West Nile enough to trigger it? Is global warming enough to trigger it? Give me some idea of the threshold. If Trump would have came out and said, look, here's the deal. Our numbers estimate that right now, if we do nothing, potentially 80,000 people could die of this. And we've weighed the cost benefit. And we think that number, once you start to get over 50,000 people dead, we think that number is a reason for us to step in. We don't think that we saw that with H1N1, West Nile, etc. So we would have never stepped in. I would feel a little more comfortable then. If they would say, look, we're only going to do this for 2 weeks. We're going to have some sort of countermeasures to make sure that this doesn't go on indefinitely. Then I would have felt a little more comfortable. As it is, I can honestly tell you, I've never been more fearful that our country will never be the same and will be destroyed than I am today. It is not because of a virus. It is because I'm watching Americans that I was so happy to say were waking up, understood the lies of the government to take our rights away with things like the Patriot Act, understood the lies with the foreign regime change wars, understood the lies with the bank bailouts, understood the lies of the media. To watch some of the most powerful advocates that called out those lies for years and years now, to celebrate, to say, yes, please strip me of my rights. How dare anyone question this? You're immoral. You want to see people die if you question this. That's what I'm seeing all over the place. And that, to me, lets me know. Yeah. When mark my words, every argument that's being made, well, we don't know exactly how many people this will kill, but the government needs to do something. Every single argument Bernie Sanders is writing down right now, and he's going to say in 2 years, yes, Donald Trump was exactly right. This is why we need to pass a Green New Deal, because the climate will kill everyone. And every single one of these Trump supporters that are supporting Trump's actions now will say, oh, no, that's different. Oh, really? The World Health Organization, the same numbers you're using now, the same agency, they're the ones saying 250,000 people a year will die of climate change. So what's the difference? What's your moral leg to stand on? You didn't ask questions now. If you don't, I'm sorry, I'll finish up with this. If in a time of crisis, you're unwilling to unquestionably accept the government stripping you of your rights, then you don't deserve those rights. It's that simple.
Right. Well, and to what you were just saying about the government just answering some basic questions. And don't get me wrong, I really like Trump's style a lot of the time. I like how he goes after the media and stuff. And he's got legitimate cause to do that in a lot of cases. But if we were to ask these questions and we want serious responses to it, does anybody here, even though we support Trump, do we really trust that Trump can do that, can answer those questions in a good enough way that Americans feel good about what's happening? Dustin, what do you think? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with both what Rob said, and I've been watching some of Rob's latest videos over the last week. We've been producing a lot at Douglas Ducote's show, trying to cut through the lies, show the truth as much as we can, bring on experts from emergency management, border experts, to cover all the things that are going on. I want to make this perfectly clear. I will send anyone an email and show you the proof. I supported Donald Trump all the way back since 2011 when he started appearing at CPAC and other places. I donated money to Donald Trump's campaign. I volunteered on the ground in the campaign. I went to over 12 rallies. But I do not trust Donald Trump. I do not trust any elected official. I have never, since I got involved with grassroots politics in 2006, I never put trust or faith in any politician ever, because I know that when you do that, you're going to be let down. So I supported him because I supported the plan, not the man. I don't look at men as being superheroes. So in this particular situation, I come at this always from a very skeptical position, and I believe what Rob said is exactly true, and Rob and I have been texting about this, and Steve and I have as well. If you're going to have this kind of response, it's your responsibility to justify this level of response. If this is a real virus, and it turns out they know 5 mutations from now that it's going to be more dangerous than it appears to be, fine. If it's a bioweapon that was engineered in China, fine. But I believe it's the responsibility of the government, of President Trump, to step forward. We've seen him give very presidential speeches, the State of the Union, in front of the 53 Arab nations, and to address the nation and say, look, here's the deal. This is what happened. This is what we're doing to contain it. And this is why we have to do this. But when you come out and start off 2 weeks ago telling us it's just the flu, and then you do this emergency Oval Office broadcast freaking everybody out, and then a state of emergency, and then on top of it, I will be honest, I think the White House for a long time has lacked a chief of staff. They're always contradicting themselves. Even with this, President Trump will say something like, oh, we got this great cure, and the next day, Dr. Fauci, who is always with him, comes out and says he's skeptical of the cure. So this creates panic. This creates chaos. And if people understand, from chaos comes order. Favorite thing of dictators. I'm not saying Trump is of that mentality, but we also know there's deep state around him vying for power as well. So I think they need to come out, and there needs to be a clear message. Everyone's got to be on point, because the longer you let this drag on, the longer the conspiracy theories will spread all over the place. And there are many now, from the Q end to MAGA folks to the left to fake news media. Everyone is spinning a narrative. And as you see across the country, and this is states' rights, we don't want to end this, there are governors, there are mayors that are taking power right now in various ways, locking down martial law in California, stopping people from buying ammo, releasing prisoners onto the streets, passing laws that say we're not going to arrest you for property crimes. You know, that's what's happening. And I think that's because there is a lack of a solid plan and one unified voice coming out of the White House, which is what I think we need right now.
I want to respond to that. I agree. There's so many things we all agree with, just minor tweaks. I think I kind of feel like, and I agree with you on Donald Trump stuff right now, where I am questioning some stuff where before I was like, what? because like you said, when he first came out, he said it was just the flu, and then a couple days later, it's, oh my gosh, the end of the world. I think some of that can be attributed to bad intel that's been fed to him. And if we do believe there's deep state actors still around him that want to see him fall, they would be in his ear telling him X, Y, and Z just to make him go out and make a public defense of it, and then come back later a day, oh, we were wrong, you got to go tell him this, just to help him make him look worse than he maybe could and should. But also going back to the thing of he needs to come out and tell us now. I think that's what he's trying to do. But I think they've been slow rolling this thing, because if they just came out and straight told us what's up, that we are going to be it would ensue in so much panic that it wouldn't be manageable. I think they're trying to manage the panic. And you see what's happening right now with the panic that's already hitting, right? The panic buying and people just going out, and the idiots that need to be removed from our gene pool anyways, that are just spending all their money and fighting over toilet paper. You see what's happening with that already. So it's kind of like, they need to slow roll this out. But then you got to wonder this whole thing, like people saying, well, martial law is okay. It's not martial law if you have the National Guard on the street and the Army Corps of Engineers, if they're rolling on the street, they're just there to protect you guys. Well, again, that's part of that slow rollout, because I read an article that I want you to throw up here in a minute that says that now there's new legislation coming through. The DOJ is pushing legislation that says that they can detain anybody they want to, just like in martial law, right? They can detain you if they are seeing that there's a potential for any amount of time that they need to. And so now that's and
they're going to be using those cameras too. The heat cameras.
That won't happen. You don't have to worry there no more. They're not going to arrest people. Well, give me a break, guys. This is a slip and slide we're going down to, and for whatever reason, of whatever the virus is or isn't, the crazy part is we're here now. So what are our next steps going to be? Because we are here, and I know more will be revealed to us as time goes on, because they won't be able to hide it, at least that well. I mean, I knock on wood when I say that, because I think the next thing they'll do is they'll be taking down our communications. So if they really want everything to devolve to create chaos, they're going to keep pushing those buttons. And it looks to me right now, even though they're acting like they want to keep things from chaos, they want chaos at their own rate, at their own control. And so I really don't fully know what to believe. But I am taking precautions on this whole virus thing and taking it a little more serious, because I have been sick for 3 times. And I keep saying this to people in the last month and a half, 2 months, I've been sick 3 times. And so it's like, and I don't get sick, so it's weird to me. And I am, for my family, taking the utmost of precautions on this, but I'm not happy with what we're seeing happen. It's fearful and scary and exciting all at the same time. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny you say that it's exciting, because if I didn't have kids, it probably would be more exhilarating and exciting. But I'm actually finding myself buying into the fear mongering a little bit, and I'm trying not to. It's hard not to. But then I read these articles. The DOJ is looking to get powers to indefinitely detain people and basically just be able to operate outside the Constitution. That's frightening. And I'm not really sure. That's why I'm wondering if America can even survive this, because it seems like this stuff's coming. I mean, this isn't letting up, is it? Despite the fact that there's very low amount of deaths. I saw a guy talking about the fact
I think that wave is going to hit. I think that wave of a lot of deaths is going to hit. And I think we will be I think we'll be in the 500,000 deaths easy before this first wave.
Well, here's my question. Well, real quick, you can answer that, Robert. You can answer that real quick, but here's my question. What are the daily, in a bad flu season, what are the daily deaths? Is it comparable to what we're seeing now?
In the U.S.,
it seems like it could be.
A year?
Hundreds,
about 50,000 a year.
No, I think that number's even
high.
Right,
60,000, something like that, during a bad one.
I spent a lot of time looking at Italy's numbers, for example. In Italy's numbers, the flu season, it's 2,800. The reason Italy's important, by the way, if you're listening, is that's the excuse, for example, my governor, Tom Wolf, gave. Look at the dead bodies right now. Not that will occur. Look at the dead bodies in Italy now. That justifies shutting the state down. Right. Well, the dead bodies in Italy, when he said that, was about 3,200. 2,800 die a month of the regular flu. Now, also, if you look at the numbers in Italy, it's interesting. You know how many people have died of the flu this year in Italy a month? 280. So in other words, it seems as if a lot of the people that were dying of the flu, they also contracted coronavirus, and they say, oh, well, you died of coronavirus, not the flu. But how else would you explain that you've had an almost, a 10 times decrease in the amount of flu deaths at the exact same time? The corona happens to be killing. So if you take Coronavirus and flu together in Italy a month. They're basically killing the equivalent amount of people. Yet for some reason, we're being showing pictures of trucks with dead bodies piling up, and we're being told stories of the crematoriums can't burn
Satellite
bodies
pictures.
fast enough. Like, come on. This is the exact same crap we saw in Syria. Remember that in Syria, the gas attack in Syria, where the white helmets went in and,
Yep.
oh my God, people were screaming. Then they talked to the doctors in Syria, and they were like, dude, that never happened. That was a test run. They were filming stuff like a Hollywood studio. But, so I'm not saying that people aren't dying in Italy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying just to keep it in comparison. It's similar in the United States with the flu numbers. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I know on average how many people die a year or a month with the flu in the United States. I don't know that, but it's certainly way more than we've seen with coronavirus. I see no evidence at all. I don't even see that this will get to 500,000 deaths. I mean, even in Italy, 500,000 deaths, that would be what? That would be like a third of a percent of our population, I think, something like that. In Italy,
That's still a lot of people, but
oh well, sure. In Italy right now, the people that have died, and granted it'll go up. Let's say it gets 10 times worse in Italy. The population of Italy that has died right now is 0.00005%. That's the percentage of people in Italy that have died of the coronavirus right now. Now that's to justify destroying the world economy, to destroy their economy.
Well, here's the thing, though, Robert.
Italy has
Number
a
one-
large population of older people. Too.
Right, it's going to be worse in Italy.
There's a lot of factors.
Right.
And exactly. But here's the other thing too. And this is just something that's coming to my mind, but this is how many people have died after they've locked down. Had they not locked it down, then that number could be way, way higher too.
Well, yeah, but they also
That's
had
another thing,
hug a Chinese day, right? You remember that? Italy's leader said, "Let's have a hug a
Right.
Chinese." We didn't do that.
Little virtue signaling for the country.
Right. So would Italy's deaths have been higher? I don't know. Perhaps by the time they decided to do these quarantines, it was already too late. The United States didn't have Hug a Chinese Day, so possibly, and our system's infinitely better. Again, if right, I know, not that you should, whatever, but
Did you see the video?
Go ahead, Dustin. Yeah.
Did you see the video where the guy's wearing the mask and the people are taking his mask off
Yep.
and hugging him and stuff? Like, what?
I know. Well, I just wanted to say, look, on the Douglas Ducote show from the beginning, we said to our audience, we're going to use the CDC numbers and the WHO numbers and then the Johns Hopkins tracking map because that is supposed to be the information that President Trump looks at. So that's all we were going to base our information on. And you could skew the infected number, the death number, based on your trust level with those organizations, of which I will tell you up front, I trust none of them. I trust no government, no universities, or anyone. But what I can tell you is the higher you see the infected rate go up, when we're in exponential growth rate now, as so they claim based on the tracking maps, just look at that number not as the number infected, but create a scale for yourself, because the higher that number goes, the more liberties and freedoms you're about to lose. That's how I look at those numbers. So as long as the government keeps saying the numbers are going up, just look at that as you're losing more rights, because that's exactly what they're doing. Now, as far as like the reaction, and I just want to say, because right now, even CDC and Dr. Fauci, who's with Trump all the time, is saying the mortality rate here is going to be about 1%.
Yep.
But we had a biologist on our show. I had him send me some information. What's the real deal with this? And as he said, look, you can go over to the Google app now. So if you Google coronavirus, you're going to see the screen come up with Google. This is the one that President Trump promoted that was going to come out. They are saying right there, so this is endorsed by President Trump, that it is nothing more than the flu. The symptoms of the flu. The mortality rate, the death rate is not. So this biologist said, look, if China had couldn't create it. He's looked at all of the studies. This is not created in a lab. What they could have done is weaponized something real, the real virus, by lying to the world about this coming into existence, which now they're looking at tracking that it actually didn't start December 29th. It was a few months earlier, and then start releasing some infected Chinese around the world. Then what you would end up doing with that is start to take down supply chains, create panic, create havoc, just like you would do in a two-tiered terrorist attack, where first you mess with the system, then you release the real weapon, which in this case, he said what they could do is they could take the SARS-CoV-2, which is what this is, which is highly contagious, 3 to 4 times more contagious than the flu, supposedly according to CDC. but it's not highly virulent, so it doesn't have a high mortality rate. But you could technically fuse that with an H5N1, which has a 60% mortality rate, and then release that on the world, and that is how you can start killing a ton of people. I'm not saying this is happening, but he said scientifically that's what would have to be done. And if that's the case, our government should be coming out and telling us immediately, just because they should have full transparency and warn you of the actual dangers of what could be coming.
And let me just real quick give
that's
the
why
actual
there's an
numbers.
attack.
Let me just give the actual numbers in the United States. March 8th, mortality rate of 4.6%, 22 deaths from 541 cases. March 9, that number drops to 3.69%. March 10, 3.1%. Or 3.01%. March 11th, 2.9%. March 12th, 2.5%. March 13th, 2.2%. Skip ahead a couple days. March 18th, 1.6%. March 19th, 1.5%. March 20th, currently, today, or yesterday, the last day of the full numbers, 256 deaths with 19,383 cases. That is a 1.32 mortality rate. So with this span of 12 days, we've gone from a 4% mortality rate to a 1.3% mortality rate. If 500,000 people would die, I'm not so sure in my math, but that would mean, I believe, at that mortality rate that we're currently seeing now, that would mean that over 500 million people would have to be affected in the United States. I mean, I just don't see that occurring. That's not to say it couldn't. I don't know, but with that trend, I don't see all of a sudden the mortality rate going back up. Even the CDC and the World Health Organization says the more people are tested, the more you'll see the mortality rate coming down, because what happens is a lot of people. Go ahead.
What I was going to say is, like in New York, for instance, it's been skyrocketing. I think they say after you have over 256 cases confirmed, you can't contain it anymore. So the containment, and LA County came out today or yesterday and said they're not even trying to do their testing anymore. They're moving towards
they gave up.
They gave up on testing because it doesn't even matter. So when the wave starts to hit, although early on those numbers were dropping, now that we have, especially now that everything's locked down, but now that you have these big cities getting infected within the next week to 2 weeks, I think we're going to see a major spike in that mortality rate is what I foresee happening.
But nothing shows there'll be a spike in the rate. There could be a spike in the people infected.
Let me ask you this. Right.
Well, but
so
the more people infected,
see right there, even the numbers on the infected aren't going to be accurate. One, because we know everyone wasn't going to get tested anyway, but now you're seeing places where it's spreading, like say LA, which is now saying they're not going to do testing. So how are they going to do reporting?
Right, and
now no numbers are going to be accurate anymore.
Exactly, and the other thing is, SJG, I don't disagree with what you said. The experts say once like 200 people get it in an area, then it's inevitable you'll have a spread. Dude, the quarantine won't solve that. So why are we intentionally destroying the U.S. economy and destroying our rights?
Right.
Even the head medical guy in New Jersey said, "Here's the dirty secret." Everyone's go ahead. Not to parrot
the mainstream talking points here, but the quarantine is designed to stop that wave and to stop that massive spread, which will lead then to this high percentage of people, or low, however you want to look at it, but a lot of dead bodies piling up, and and once you've overwhelmed the hospitals, once you've overwhelmed the medical conditions or the emergency services, then you could see a real spike in deaths and a real spike in stuff getting out of control. So yes, a quarantine will slow that down. I'm not.
That's why we're doing what we're doing right now.
No, I hear you, SCG.
Right.
Yeah,
that's why we're doing.
But let's say the mortality rate is 1%, as the CDC and Dr. Fauci, who's with Trump at every press conference, is saying now. Let's say all of America was infected. 3.3 million people die, the majority of which are going to be older people. And I'm not saying I don't care about older people. I don't want to see my parents die and stuff like that. But I'm saying is, does it justify driving us into a Great Depression? Does it justify shutting down all small business? So if this goes on for 2, 3, 4 months, small business will be decimated in the United States. They employ 70. But they employ 70% of the people in this country. So now 70% of the workforce will be unemployed when we come out of this thing. Small business will be finished. These big companies like Walmart and Amazon that are already in bed with our government, these guys have been getting government contracts for the longest times, are going to be further nationalized. And now they're going to control production, distribution. That is communism, when the government controls the means of production. So we're driving ourselves right into communism. Right. Even if you told me the whole country was going to get, if I were the president, they said the whole country's going to get it, 1% is going to die, I'd say 3.3 million people. Oh, well, I'm not driving the country into communism, and I will make that case to the American people.
Yep. So, I mean, if let's just say that it is as bad as they say, and it's going to get worse, and we're going to start having the bodies pile up. And would you say then at that point, Dustin, that we should give up? Is there a point at which we should start giving up rights?
Is there a point we should start giving up? Well, see, yes, and look, I look at it this way. If I give up my rights short term, I know, based on history, that I'm giving up my rights long term. Okay, coming out of the Great Depression with FDR, there was a lot of Republicans years ago that said they loved the greatest president. FDR created 100 alphabet government agencies, all the ones that we complain about. FDR created Social Security, which led our country further into socialism. We were already having problems after 1913, and frankly, I would argue the Civil War in many cases that hurt states' rights. But if you look at the situation coming out of the Great Depression, that's all we're going to get. If this is just about driving us into a deeper Great Depression, we're going to come out having lost our rights. So I put myself personally, I'm not willing to give up my constitutional rights for any man-made or natural disaster. I would rather not do it.
See,
I would most rather... natural disasters, you don't have the danger of spreading a virus that can kill everybody. So a virus that can kill everybody. So I feel like it's a little bit different. I just feel like this is really what's as making it hard for people to decide whether or not how serious.
Let me just say real quick, like I would accept. I'll disagree with Dustin in this sense a little. 1% of the population dying, I'm willing to hear that conversation, to have lockdowns and give up my rights. I'm willing. However, how you do it makes all the difference to me. Right? Because Dustin's absolutely right. We know if we give those rights up today, it will be used corruptly in the future. For every one time it's correct to infringe on our rights, there are 1,000. That's just so if it was a situation like I'm saying, on board, it's transparent as possible. They're explaining this is exactly the threshold why we've now decided that we need to have these lockdowns incrementally. We're going to pass legislation that says this ensures it wouldn't be done in the future. We're going to explain to you exactly, using charts and graphs and whatever, how the initial H1N1 or climate change or whatever would not justify this type of thing. We're going to come re-vote on this every week, etc. I would be more willing to hear it, but as it is right now, no.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is a very fluid situation. Devil's advocate.
Who here?
Go ahead.
Well, besides that, who here is actually worried that this will actually turn into some sort of like Armageddon situation, apocalyptic situation? Because think about it. Think about it. They say the heat. Hopefully, the summer kills it. I mean, it's warm in Texas right now, isn't it? And it's still a problem in Texas. I mean,
yeah. I mean, the biologist we talked to for the Douglas Dakota show said, yeah, as of right now, and a lot of people are experts, don't want to go on the record because there's not a lot of information on this yet, but they're saying heat and humidity. But they said, again, this thing could mutate 15 times by the time it gets to that point. Now,
it's supposedly wrecking young people right now in Italy.
Yeah, we're starting to hear stories of young people. We had this morning at the Trump presser, they said